Hello everyone, this is the finale of What If Naruto was exiled and built a new village, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Waiting room 19. The three boys were all waiting in a room, separated from the other 20 teams. It was surprisingly nice. The small room was well furnished with 2 couches, 3 cushioned chairs and 2 desks. It was rather cozy, and far richer than the hotel room they were staying at was like. Inaki was sitting in a desk reading a novel he browsed along. Okami was lying on his back, on a couch, reading one of his novels. Yami, however. Would you stop pacing? You're driving me nuts, spoke Okami's slightly irritated voice. I can't stand not knowing what the hell is going on. He emphasized that sentence by his fist against the wall. Yami, there's a reason we're down here. They don't want us, or any of the other compeers, to see the fights. They want everyone to be completely surprised when it comes to the other team's abilities, spoke Inaki's calm voice. Yami pounded his head against the wall and kept it there. I'm going to go nuts. Inaki turned to Yami. Are those 3 girls special to you? Were they friends? Yami shook his head. Far from it, they were in fact some bullies that I had to deal with while I was younger. Like I told you before, the twins are the worst sort of sadists in my graduating class. And the other had the uncontrollable urge to punch things, and people. Okami raised his head at the word sadist. He started picturing the genjutsu they placed him in when they first met. Made his bee boil, also reminded him of the one they placed him in a few days later. Flashback. Okami was running down the streets and looking in every direction. No matter which way he turned, no matter which way he looked, all he could see were a bunch of hairy old men in their underwear. No, this can't be happening, this can't be happening, the swordsman started chanting to himself. Okami's eyes widened. The bathhouse. Of course. Okami started running in the direction of the bathhouses. When he got there, he nearly had a heart attack. He looked to one side of the bathhouse and saw one side, men, read one of the signs. He looked at the other side and saw a sign that read, men XXX. He fell to the ground, in a fetal position, and started rocking back and forth. No, 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 he once again chanted in his mind. His eyes widened once again. He started searching in his pockets. This is my only salvation left. He pulled out his familiar orange book and his heart nearly stopped. Icha Icha Yaoi Paradise, he read out the lore of his formerly favorite book and dropped it to the ground. No. End flashback. Okami was now standing on the couch, his arms held up high. When he remembered that what happened over a month ago, he stopped screaming. He opened his eyes, arms still raised high, and looked at his comrades who were staring at him. Sorry, he said with a grin, scratching the back of his head. Their door suddenly opened and the head of an Anbu popped in. What the hell is going on in here? I heard screaming. Okami laughed nervously. Sorry about that, yay, we're fine. The Anbu stared at him and shook his head. Don't scream like that unless there's a problem. With that said, he closed the door behind him. What the hell was that about? Asked a confused psychic. Nothing, replied the swordsman. So, why the hell do you want to save those 3 anyways, if they are, how you say you are? Yami shook his head. Just feel obliged, honestly. They were in my graduating class. Plus, still kinda feel bad that I almost K'd them. What Yami said had been partially true. Recently he had started to feel regret for what his demonic self did during the first part of Chunin exam. All we can do is wait, Yami, replied the medic. With that, the 3 went back to doing what they were doing before. This time, however, Yami chose to lay down on the second couch, crossing his arms under his head. He looked at the clock. It was 12:45. The Chunin exam had started at 10 a.m. Yami sighed and chose to rest his eyes. Inaki's right, nothing to do but wait until our turn comes along. He didn't have to wait long. About 3 minutes later, an Anbu came into their room. It's your turn. Are you ready? The boys looked at the Anbu and nodded. How did our other team do? The Anbu looked down. Team 28, D, against the grass nins they were fighting. Yami's clenched his eyes shut. Okami clenched his fist. Inaki's eyes widened. Yami looked at the ninja before him, and, Team 17. The Anbu looked down again and motioned with his head, towards his left. Yami's eyes widened and he ran past the Anbu and into the hall. He looked towards his left and the bee drained from his face. He saw Sakura and Aki, being carried in stretchers. He could see Ayami walking slowly behind the two in tears, scratched and bruised but not nearly as bad as the other two. His body froze, he didn't even notice when the girls were out of his view. He felt someone touch his shoulder. He looked over to the Anbu. Supposedly they'll be alright, they look really bad, but they should be ready to go home in a few days. Yami nodded and thanked the man. Inaki and Okami walked to stand next to the psychic. Come on. The way the match is set up, if we win the fight against the Leaf Nins, we'll be able to take on the Sound Nins again, said the swordsman, whilst he was cracking his knuckles. Yosh. It is true. The boys turned to voice behind them to see the three green-clad Leaf Nin. If you were able to defeat us, you would be fighting the Sound Nin, however you will never get the opportunity, for you see we have youth on our side, spoke one of three clones. Okami's eye twitched. Who the hell gives a damn about youth? It's skill that wins a fight. Yosh. You're right in saying such things. You are very wise, it's such a shame you come from such a vile village, you would make a great Leaf Nin. Inaki's bee boiled more than anyone's at hearing what they said. Vile. What the hell do you mean vile? They just looked at him with a smirk. Your village was created by a vile demon. Inaki growled. Our village was created by the great Naruto-sama. He was tainted by a vile demon, and in turn became just as evil and just as vile. He committed many crimes against Konohagakure. What crimes? Asked Inaki. Caused the downfall of the honorable Uchiha clan. Attempted to corrupt multiple of the Leaf Nins around him. Caused the Sand Village to betray Konohagakure again. Corrupted the branch members of the Hyuga clan. The only part of the Hyuga clan that was corrupt was the main family. The beautiful green beast just shook his finger. The main family didn't run away from Konohagakure and become criminals. The leader of the criminals, Neji team, was known to be a friend of Naruto no Kitsune and was obviously tainted by it. Inaki clenched his fist and gritted his teeth. How dare you speak badly of Neji-sama and Naruto-sama? Yami and Okami were in a similar state. The three green beasts just looked at them with tears in their eyes. That vile creature tainted the two greatest men in Leaf history. The great Guy-sama and Lee-sama. They were corrupted into caring for the demon, they were the first two beautiful green beasts of Konohagakure. And they were tainted, the one who was speaking all along clenched his fist, as did the other two. Now we will restore the honor of the two warriors. The Moon Nin were about ready to explode. I've heard enough, finally exploded the Anbu, who had been listening to the bickering. I don't give a damn what your two countries believe in, or even which one of you is right. The only thing that matters is that I'm tired of listening to ya, so get out the freaking door. He looked at the six Nin for a second. I mean, you need to start your match. Everyone is waiting for you. Whatever your differences are, settle them in the ring. The three Moon Nins glared at the grinning Leaf Nins and then walked off. The green beasts walked off in a different direction. They were about to walk through the door when Yami was stopped by a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see the owner of the hand was Inaki. Yami looked at him questioningly. He came close to whisper in his ear, I almost forgot to mention, unless absolutely necessary, do not summon any frogs. Seeing Yami's questioningly look, he continued. Megumi might not have told you, but the frog contract belonged to a man named Jiraiya. Yaeshi told me that, replied the psychic, whispering. Well, Jiraiya was one of Naruto's teachers. He was also a Leaf Nin. In other words, the frog contract used to belong to Konohagakure. We don't need another reason for them to be after us. They can probably tell that I'm Hizuga just by my eyes. If they find out that you have the frog contract, it'll just be another incentive. Yay, you're right. Well, luckily I gave the contract to one of the frogs, no need to carry it around myself. Oh, and Okami already knows this, so you should probably know, don't let anyone find out that I'm the son of you know who. If that's the case, we might as well put a giant bullseye on our backs. If they find out that he is the son of the Hizuga clan head, we could be in big trouble. Stop mumbling, you two, spoke the swordsman who had been looking around to make sure no one was listening. The other two nodded. Inaki nodded. Come on, he ordered, let's kick their asses. With that said, he walked out the door. The other two were a little dazed. Wow, never heard Inaki curse before, said the psychic who followed the medic. Me either, replied the swordsman. Arena. The 6 shinobi were standing in the middle of the arena. The arena was rather big. The walls were made at least 3 stories high. The ground was composed of grass mostly. There were a few rocks, a few boulders, and 2 small lakes on opposite sides of the field. Got to help support their own genins. They could see spectators all around them. Many of them looked like commoners, but some looked noble. They could see the cages up in the cage box. Yami saw the Tsukikage frowning worriedly at them. After what happened to the other 2 teams, who could blame him? A Junin jumped into the arena, right between the 2 teams. He was dressed like a standard Junin dresses, except that his heat was in the form of a bandana that covered his whole head. Alright, listen up, I'm going to make it short. This is an all-out battle. The battle ends when you or your opponent either D, surrenders, or if I deem the battle hopeless towards one party. On the count of 3 the battle shall begin. Everyone understand? He saw the genins nod. He turned to the cage box. Hello everyone. The final match of the semi-finals will be between a team from KONAHAGAKURE and a team from TSUKIGAKURE. When he paused, some cheering could be heard. Must want to get the match underway, thought the psychic. Alright, let's get this match underway. Ready. 1, 2, 3. The Junin puffed away in a cloud of smoke. They wasted no time. They all picked an opponent and started fighting. Yami versus Handu. Handu wasted no time in attacking. He used the smoke the Junin created as cover. He jumped through it and sent a punch at the psychic. Yami quickly sidestepped the punch and tried throwing his own, which was blocked by the Leaf Nin. Konoha Reppu, Leaf Gale, the Leaf Nin did a spinning sweep kick, and attempted to sweep him off his feet. Yami however did a backflip to avoid the kick. Handu launched himself at the psychic and started throwing a chain of punches at the psychic. Yami was doing all he could to just dodge and block the attacks. Though the latter left his arms sore. Okay. Taijutsu-wise, he's a lot better than me, can't let this many people see me summoning, not at my current skill level at least, should hold out on the cursed seal, so I'm stuck with Taijutsu, psychic power, and water ninjutsu. Yami smirked, he was being pushed against one of the lakes. Yami's eyes shifted silver. Yami launched himself after blocking a punch. He preformed a spinning kick, enhancing his speed with telekinesis. Handu was able to block it, but the force of the kick pushed him back. Handu was about to launch himself at the psychic, however Yami quickly preformed a backflip, flicking open both his Fuma shurikens, and threw both his Fumas at Handu. Handu's eyes widened, he pulled out a kunai and a jump to the right. He was able to dodge one of the Fumas and block the other one with the kunai in hand. However, the force of the attack once again pushed him back. Yami smirked, it was all the time he needed. He started doing the hand seals necessary. Hopefully I can finish this here. Suten, Suiruden no Jutsu. A large dragon started forming from the lake behind him. It swirled around for a second as it rose from the water and then it turned towards Handu and launched itself at him. Handu's eyes widened, before being engulfed by the water. Yami smiled once again and let himself rest for a second. Initial gate open. Green chakra started flaring. The remaining water exploded out, due to the powerful green chakra. Yami's eyes widened. Okami versus Kiku. Kiku launched herself at Okami and was about to start throwing punches at him. He quickly pulled out his wakizashis. Though much shorter than normal blades, Okami was able to use his wakizashis to keep Kiku at bay. Okami launched himself, swinging his swords at the girl in front of him. Kiku was doing everything she could to just dodge the swordsman. Finally Okami saw an opening and thrust a wakizashi at her. It looked like his sword connected with Kiku, however a puff of smoke later showed that it had connected with a rock. Initial gate open, Okami heard behind him. Konoha Senpu, Leaf Hurricane, Okami turned just in time to see Kiku kick him into the air. Kage Buyo, Shadow of the Dancing Leaf, Kiku appeared under the airborne swordsman. She was parallel to him, following a similar trajectory. Omote Range, Front Lotus, this time the bandages that were wrapped around Kiku's arms started to unravel themselves. As if they had a mind of their own, they wrapped themselves around Okami, forcing him to drop both his blades in the process. This is the end, she whispered in his ear. Inaki vs. Anarkaki. Inaki and Anarkaki were the only fighters who didn't attack each other right away. Inaki suppressed a grin. He was up against the same guy who spoke badly about Tsukigakure, Neji, and Naruto. I'll make him pay for that. Finally Anarkaki launched himself at the medic Nin. He started off with a flurry of punches. Inaki was able to either block or dodge all of his punches. Unless I hit him with my chakra scalpel, there's no way I can match his taijutsu. Konoha Reppu, Anarkaki attempted to sweep Inaki off his feet. He succeeded, however the medic Nin quickly sprung his arms backwards and used them to launch himself into a backflip. Anarkaki started to follow him, intent on punching him the moment he landed, but was stopped due to a flurry of senbon needles heading straight at him. Anarkaki had to jump backwards to avoid getting hit by them. Inaki preformed a few hand seals, Raiten, lightning blast no jutsu. Blue electricity started cracking from Inaki's hands. A few seconds later the electricity gathered itself into the form of a ball. Inaki then threw the ball at Anarkaki. Anarkaki saw the ball coming straight at him and jumped to the side. He managed to avoid getting hit by the ball, but after the ball connected with the ground it exploded, sending little bolts of electricity outwards, some that got Anarkaki. They didn't cause much damage, they only managed to stun him for a second. Anarkaki stood tall the moment he landed on the ground. Initial gate open. Green chakra suddenly exploded from Anarkaki. At this point all three green beasts had just opened their first gate. Anarkaki launched himself at Inaki, who had also just landed. He threw a punch at Inaki, who didn't have a chance to block or dodge. However, it never connected, the punch went straight off the medic's head, and Inaki disappeared a second afterwards. Anarkaki had a look of utter horror etched on his face when he felt a chakra signature behind him. Anarkaki tried to turn, but it was too late. Inaki quickly looked around the arena and nearly froze. He started performing the necessary hand seals. Raiten, lightning shuriken no jutsu. Okami vs. Kiku. Kiku positioned herself, and Okami, so that she was vertically upside down. As she started falling, with Okami still tied up with her bandages, she started spinning herself and her captive. Okami's eyes widened, as he looked at the ground under him coming closer and closer. The two ninja were about 2 meters away from the ground when it happened. Kiku felt multiple sharp objects hit in the back. Worst part is that they were sending jolts of electricity throughout her body, making her muscles spasm. It caused her to twist out of her spinning drop and cause her to land on her stomach. Okami landed in a similar fashion as the girl. Okami started to rise, getting himself out of the now loose bandages. He saw that she had multiple senbon needles stuck to her back. He looked around to see Inaki just standing. His opponent was on the floor behind him. He mouthed out a thanks to his long-time friend. Kiku was beyond pissed off at that moment. I am one of the beautiful green beast of Konogakure. I won't lose like this. She started to rise, sending chakra all throughout her system, cancelling the effects of the electricity. Green chakra was still surging from the girl. Heel gate open. Green chakra once again exploded from the girl. Okami glared at the girl. He pulled out his Hakume Shiken. He started performing one-handed seals. Kenjutsu, wind decapitating no jutsu. Wind started surging around his black double-edged sword. He grasped it with both his and started sprinting at the girl in front of him. She started sprinting at the swordsman as well, significantly faster than him. He brought his sword, which was still swirling with wind, into a horizontal S. What confused the girl is that she was a good few feet away from the S when it happened. She stopped moving a little early, however she soon found the point of the jutsu. Wind started swirling around the girl. It seemed that it was coming from every direction, but it just kept switching within a second. She couldn't move her body. Raiten, lightning blast. Luckily for Kiku though, Okami positioned his blade so he wouldn't K the girl. He positioned it so she would be smashed in the head by the flat side of it. It did just that. The girl was sent flying a few feet and she landed with a thud. She wouldn't be getting up in a while either. Okami sheathed his Hakume Shiken, panting due to the chakra he exhausted from using it. Come on, let's end this. Okami turned to see Inaki, staring off into the fight between Yami and the other green beast. Yami versus Handu. Handu launched himself at the psychic and slugged him with a strong punch. Yami didn't even have time to block the attack. Handu then hit the Yami with a punch to the stomach, knocking the wind out of him. Yami saw this was going to be bad and, with his eyes shifting back to their brilliant silver color, he recalled one of his Fuma shuriken, but not before receiving a few more hard punches. Yami brought his Fuma over and at the leaf nin. However, Handu had lunged backwards to avoid his strike. Yami kept the Fuma in front of him, as he regained his breath. Handu didn't want to give him time though. Yami saw his other one still lying helplessly on the ground, behind the leaf nin. He used his power to bring it back to himself. He was hoping to hit the leaf nin in the back. However, that didn't occur. The leaf nin heard the Fuma coming and did a backflip over it. Yami caught his other Fuma and then launched himself at Handu. Handu pulled out another kunai and the two started fighting. Handu was able to block Yami's larger weapons due to the opening of his first gate. Heel gate open. Handu once again exploded with chakra. He launched himself at Yami and clashed blades with him. Yami was pushed back by the force of the attack. He was left open to an attack. Handu was trapped. Green chakra stopped flaring from him. This is the time the proctor decided to jump in. The Leaf team is no longer able to battle. I declare the winners to be the Moon team. A cheer erupted from the crowd. Handu fell to his knees. Sentu-sensei, my youth has diminished. His comment made the three Moon team's sweat dropped. Yami looked up to the cage box to see a smiling Tsukikage. He smiled back and then frowned. Their final fight would be a rematch between them and the Sound team. This time, a buzzer wouldn't save them. Waiting room 19. Team 7 was once again lounging around, in the same waiting room they were in earlier. Their match ended a little after 1 p.m. The teams were to be given half an hour break to recuperate, before the finals started. It was currently 3 p.m., and they were still waiting for their match to start. Yami and Okami were both lounging around on a couch, and Inaki was sitting in a chair. Earlier a medic nin had come in to heal their W, and given them each a soldier pill to restore their chakra. After the trio had won their match, they returned to the room silently, awaiting their next opponents. They were all nervous about who they would have to fight next. Okami sighed, not sure what we're all nervous about, can't do much about it, we'll just have to kick their asses this time around. Inaki nodded, the only options are to fight, or to quit. He paused to look at his teammates. When they heard the word quit, they both looked at him with a raised eyebrow and a smirk. This caused Inaki to smirk as well. Yami clenched his fist. Last time they caught us while we were weak. This time will be different. The other two nodded just as an Anbu opened the door. You boys are up. The three boys got up from their positions and walked towards the door. Hey, you guys are the final match of the Chunin exams, good luck to all of you. With that the three boys turned to leave, they went out the door. Arena. The 6 nin stood in front of each other, the Moon nin on one side and the Sound nin on the other. The Sound team had the same equipment they used during the Chunin exam, on. The proctor jumped into the middle of the arena. It was the same Junin that proctored the semi-finals, earlier that day. All right everyone, he yelled so everyone could hear. This will be the last round of the finals. We have from the Moon team, Okami Hanone, Inochihizuuga, and Yami Hikari. Up in the cage stands. Orochimaru banged his hand against the railing, scaring the hell out of the 2 Sound ninja who were with him. Hikari. I ordered that full Marulas to eliminate the last of the clan over 12 years ago. Orochimaru leaned back in his chair. So, one of these bastards have one of my cursed seals, well that can be taken care of very easily. Orochimaru preformed a few one-handed seals. Farewell. Arena. Yami's eyebrow lifted. He raised his hand to his neck and started scratching the area where his cursed seal was. Unbeknownst to him, the kanji of light started glowing a very faint white, so faint that no one else saw it either. And from the Sound team, Kiyooltus, Hinokikankel, Lamia Yakusugi. Like he had done with the Moon team, the proctor pointed to each contestant when he called out their names. Hinoki was the red-headed girl, Kyo was the white-haired boy, and Lamia was the black-haired boy. Yami was still scratching his neck. Up in the cage stands. Orochimaru's eyes went wide, and then he sneered in anger. He should be sprawling about in pain. He assumed the one that was scratching his neck was the one with the cursed seal. He stopped holding the seal and rested his chin in his hands, elbows resting on the railing. It matters not, the boy will die. Lamia has promised me that himself, and if Lamia can't fulfill his promise, then it will all depend on the Mizukage. Arena. The proctor turned towards the group. Do you all remember the rules? They all nodded. Good. Ready. 1, 2, 3. Up in the cage stands. I can't believe he's made it this far, said one of the Anbu who was standing next to the Tsukikage. Weizu suddenly got a slightly irritated expression. I had absolute faith in him, though he could have been better prepared. The other three Anbu away from the two, sensing a touchy subject. How could you expect me to have anything to do with him? How could she expect me? Weizu calmed down. Perhaps because she knew that you loved her, perhaps because of your good heart. The Anbu looked at him, though he was wearing a mask, the others could tell he was glaring at the old man with hatred. He was about to start yelling, but remembering where he was he opted not to. I am sick of everyone using that lame-ass excuse. I hate it when people try to use my heart against me. He was beginning to shake with rage. And Karai had no excuse to leave me with him. If she did it because I was in love with her, then she was only taking advantage of me. Weizu looked at the man in front of him with sad eyes. Taking advantage of you. Does that sound like something Karai would ever do? He waited for his answer, but merely saw him turn his face away. I don't pretend to know why Karai did what she did. To be perfectly honest, I doubt she knew what she was doing, judging by her final decision, but you know everything she did, she thought out carefully. The Anbu said nothing. Kazu, watch you Gosun's battle, watch your love's legacy. Kazu turned to look at the scene before him. Arena. The proctor jumped out of the arena. The 6 genin picked an opponent. They decided to once again take on the same opponents they fought in the Island of Doom. Okami vs Kyo, Inaki vs Hinoki, and Yami vs Lamia. Okami vs Kyo. The white-haired genin was smirking at the silver-haired one. Okami didn't let it show, but he was seething. Kyo quickly started pulling out the same senbon, with bells attached, off his belt. He once again started throwing them around, smirk still on his face. This time though, Okami was ready. Who unsheathed his Hakume Shiken. Okami started doing some one-handed seals before muttering, Futon, Futsei Fukyu no Jutsu, air release, air diffusion technique. He then started spinning his black sword into the air. Gotta concentrate a lot of my chakra into my sword. The wind started blowing in all directions. As the senbon were coming down to land, the force of the winds blew them away. Kyo growled when he saw this. Okami smirked when he saw Kyo's face. Okami quickly sheathed his sword, to avoid it draining any more chakra, and quickly pulled out his wakizashis. Kyo got into a fighter's stance. They both launched themselves at each other. Inaki versus Hinoki. Both genin stared each other down. She smirked at him. Inaki kept a straight face. Smile all you want, you never even seen me fight my hardest yet. Hinoki pulled out her flute. Inaki pulled out his senbon needles, then with a few hand seals. Raiten, Reiku Shuriken no Jutsu, lightning release, lightning shuriken tekkenkui. With that he started through a senbon at the girl. The senbon was crackling with blue electricity. Hinoki quickly did a backflip. Inaki continued to throw senbon needles at the girl. Hinoki continued to acrobatically dodge each senbon. Along the way Inaki kept moving forward, as Hinoki kept moving backwards. This continued on for a while. Finally Hinoki landed on the edge of one of the small lakes. Inaki had only one senbon left in his hand. He had just exhausted one of his senbon pouches on this little dance. He still had a few others. He threw the last senbon at the girl, expecting her to jump into the water. What he didn't expect was for her to quickly grab her dagger, in the hand that wasn't holding her flute, and quickly hit the senbon away, ignoring the slight shock that she received from the projectile. She quickly sheathed her dagger. She pulled out her flute and started playing an eerie tune. Even without his Byakugan, Inaki could see the girl's chakra going towards to lake. Mateki, Dashi Haudai, demon flute, free flow of water. Water started shooting out of the lake in large bursts. Inaki dodged the first one and ducked under the second. He sidestepped the third. He almost avoided the next one, but he was hit in the leg. The pressure of the water knocked him off his feet. He looked up to see another jet of water coming straight towards him. Yami versus Lamia. The two ninjas stared each other down. Lamia had his sword strapped to his back. What surprised Yami was that Lami got into a taijutsu stance. He didn't grab his sword. Yami decided to follow suit, and get in his basic taijutsu stance. They stared at each other for a long time. Finally Yami launched himself at Lamia. He threw a punch, which Lamia easily blocked. Lamia threw a roundhouse kick at Yami. The psychic blocked the blow as well. They follow this pattern for quite some time. One would attack and the other would guard, then the one who guarded would attack and the other would be forced to block. Finally Yami had enough of using regular taijutsu. His eyes flared silver. He launched another punch. This time it was far too fast for Lamia to react and Lamia was slugged right in the face. Yami then preformed a spinning kick, also enhancing his speed with his psychic power. The attack threw Lamia back. The Sound Nin was about to fall on his back, but quickly put his arms under him and pushed off the ground with his arms, performing a backflip and landed on his feet. Yami was about to continue his attack but was halted when the Sound Nin pulled out his sword. Lamia grabbed the sword and put its point towards the ground, the edge of the blade facing Yami. Lamia smirked, put his hand, the one not holding the hilt of the blade, and yelled, "Kai." Yami's eyes widened as the sword began to change before his eyes. A genjutsu to hide his sword's true form. But why? He grabbed with both hands and held it above his head. "Tell me how you like it." Oto Bakuhatsu, sound explosion. He swung the blade down, swiftly, as he uttered the phrase. Yami felt something happen when the sword touched the ground. Yami quickly made to dodge but unfortunately was too late. Okami versus Kyo. Okami was throwing a flurry of attacks at Kyo. Boom. He turned his head to his downed companion and ran to him. A few seconds later Kyo opened his eyes. With a shaky arm, he moved his hand over to one of the pouches on the back of his belt. He pulled out a pill. Inaki versus Hinoki. Inaki was grabbed, at his head, by a watery arm. He was lifted several feet off of the ground. He knew that he would drown if he didn't get out soon. His arms were still free so he quickly opened another of his senbon pouches and grabbed a few. He started hurling senbon after senbon at the girl. Hinoki didn't even bat an eye. Arms started coming out of the water and blocking the senbon needles. Inaki couldn't understand how water had stopped the projectiles, instead of the senbon needles merely going through the water, but didn't have time to dwell on the fact. He was still in mid-peril. He heard an explosion behind him but couldn't even turn his head. Hinoki just kept playing the same eerie tune. Darn it, looks like it's time to bring out my trump card. Inaki quickly opened another pouch of senbon needles and took a few out. These were different though. They had some sort of paper wrapped around them. He hurled them at the girl. Once again the water came out and tried to stop these senbon needles. Inaki smirked. Boom. The senbon exploded a few feet in front of the girl, launching her backwards and stopping her flute playing. Inaki fell to the ground and started coughing and gasping for air. Hinoki jumped out of the water. Her scantily outfit and wine-red hair soaked. She was fuming at this point. She quickly put her flute to her lips once again, and started playing, closing her eyes in the process. Inaki instantly recognized this tune. Mateki, Bakuritsu Superitsu. Her chakra flared up and started to gather in 4 locations around her. It changed red and formed 4 red wisp-like creatures. The moment she opened her eyes the orbs flew at Inaki. This move, I can't let them touch me, he thought. Inaki ran forward, knowing that touching one of the orbs would result in an explosion strong enough to kill him. Inaki was able to sidestep the first orb. The one that appeared in front, flew past him and exploded on the ground. The ones that appeared at her sides were coming at him at the same time. He quickly managed to jump over them both. Afterwards they followed the first's example, flying behind him and blowing up. This time though, thanks to both explosions, he was knocked off his feet the moment he landed. He looked up to see the last spirit coming at him. He grabbed on of his special senbon and quickly hurled it at the orb that was only a few feet from him. Boom. Hinoki stopped playing her flute. She smirked as she moved some of her wet hair out of her face. He's gone. Dust and debris covered the area where Inaki last was. She was about to turn to check on her comrades when she heard someone yell. Chakra engintou. The yell startled the girl, but not as much as the body that flew out of the dust, with a glowing arm. When the both reach range, they both s each other. Neither moved. Yami versus Lamia. Yami was sprawled on the ground to the Lamia's Oto Bakuhatsu. When he tried to open his eyes, he discovered that his vision was blurry. He tried to get up, but had a hard time keeping his balance. Lamia grinned at the boy. I remember from the first part of the exam that you were a big fan of Zankua, so I knew you'd like that attack. It's unblockable, and almost unavoidable. And I'm sure you've noticed its side effects. Okami launched himself at Lamia. Lamia regained his balance and was able to block Okami's assault. Okami muttered, Kenjutsu, Hebi Soshaku, sword technique, snake bite. Okami quickly went back and pulled both his wakizashis back as well. Lamia quickly put the side of the blade in front of him to block the attack. The two wakizashis connected with the giant cleaver. The attack, though it was blocked, sent Lamia backwards. Meanwhile, Yami was still trying to get back up. His eyes were able to focus again and he was able to regain his balance. When he stood, he saw Okami and Lamia fighting it out with Kenjutsu. His eyes widened when he saw something coming at Okami. Was running towards his teammate. Yami, still a tad woozy, launched himself towards the fight. Kyo was only about a yard away from Okami, when he was intercepted by Yami. Yami started launching a series of hard punches at Kyo. Kyo, after getting hit a few times, started blocking Yami's attack. Yami jumped backwards, his eyes started glowing silver. Yami launched himself at Kyo and attacked with a flurry of punch. Kuro. Yami quickly preformed a backflip, kicking Kyo in the chin at the same time, RANPU. When Yami landed, he crouched on the ground. Kyo was still off his balance from the last attack. Yami jumped at the sound nin, he grabbed Kyo's face with his gloved hand, and his head down. RENDAN, dark light combo. Kyo wouldn't be getting back up. At this point Yami wasn't sure if he would even live. He stopped for a second to regain his balance, eyes returned blue. OTOBAKUHATSU. Yami's eyes snapped wide and he turned around. He heard a familiar explosion and winced as he saw Okami get thrown back, dropping his wakizashis in the process. Okami landed with a thud on the ground, just like Yami's were. He attempted to get back up, but he had a hard time. Lamia looked at the swordsman with hatred in his eyes. He pointed to point of the sword towards Okami. Yami's eyes widened again. Lamia was between both moon nins. Yami quickly snapped open his eyes, they flared silver. He grabbed both Fuma shuriken, and snapped them open. He threw them both at Lamia. Lamia turned towards Yami, brining his sword with them. He apparently had heard the Fuma flying. He brought his sword over his head. Yami, knowing what he was doing, quickly started performing the necessary hand seals. OTOBAKUHATSU. The sound wave went and easily stopped the Fuma shuriken, but when it reached Yami, the psychic had transformed into a rock. Lamia didn't care though. He once again turned and pointed his sword at Okami. Yami cursed for not trying to switch with something closer to Okami. Lamia was still between the two. He started running at the swordsman in a roar, AAHHHH. Yami quickly followed. He reached for his shuriken pouch and his eyes widened in shock. He couldn't find it. His eyes widened, must have somehow lost it during the first Oto Bakuhatsu. Lamia was still running towards the swordsman. Yami clenched his eyes shut. No, I can't get there, in time, Okami. Tears started sprouting from his eyes. They both were still running, Lamia trying to run the swordsman through, and Yami hoping to save him from the same fate. No, screamed the psychic, though he didn't intend to. He opened his eyes, tears still streaming. This won't end like this. I won't let Okami die. He felt a familiar, yet different sensation appear in his right hand. He closed his fist and extended two fingers. Stop right there, you bastard. He whipped his right hand to his right and then towards his left. As this happened, a golden robe-like chakra extended from Yami's fingers. It grasped onto Lamia's leg, effectively knocking him down. Yami's eyes widened. However, just as quickly as it came, it disappeared. Yami's eyes widened again. Lamia got up, pulling his sword with him. He snarled at the Hikari. He was panting and Lamia raised his sword up, to perform his sword's attack. Oto Baku, Lamia's eyes widened. He looked down to see several senbon needles stuck to his chest, legs, and even felt some on his arms. Yami's eyes were wide too. He turned to see a panting Inaki. He turned once again towards Okami, who had finally risen, picking up his swords at the same time. Yami looked around, all the sound nin were grounded. The proctor jumped in, the winners of the moon team. The trio heard cheers erupt from the stands. Up in the cage stands, Orochimaru was silently fuming. He sensed someone appear behind him. So Margulas, what did he say? Margulas looked down for a moment, he declined. Orochimaru's face remained neutral. Well, nothing can be done about that, he gestured downwards. Care to explain why? That boy is alive. I thought you told me you finished the clan off. Margulas looked down. You have been a loyal subject for me far too long, Margulas. You should know that I don't accept failure. Fix it. Margulas just nodded. The legacy of the Hikari will die. Lapras Hotel. Team 7 were lying down, each one in their own beds. It was the day after the Chunin exam. After all the fighting they had done, they finally won. The moment they returned home, they would become Chunin. The Tsukikage was extremely proud with all of them. They returned to the hotel last night and quickly fell asleep. It was currently noon, and they had just woken up. They were set to leave Kirigakure later on tonight. Weizu had agreed to take them all out to breakfast after he picked up Team 17 from the hospital. The B of all those who fell in battle were currently on a wagon, going back to Tsukigakure. Like the Godime had said, there would be a lot of sadness. The three ninjas quickly rose from their positions when they heard an explosion. 30 minutes ago, outside of Kirigakure, Margulas had made his way deep into the forest, about 10 miles away from Kirigakure. The forest was vast, covered by trees that were at least 4 stories tall. He met up with a white-haired man, who was sitting on a large boulder. Well, asked the white-haired man. The Mizukage has refused our offer. Well, what has Orochimaru-sama stated? Margulas grinned. What do you think? The man grinned back, and snapped his fingers. The second he did this, many shadows started falling from the trees and landing around the two figures. It's time for war. Lapras Hotel 45 minutes later. The youngsters were currently a little worried. After the initial explosion they heard a few more over the span of 15 minutes, they hadn't dared gone out. The boys turned their heads as someone through the room. It was the Godime. Tsukikage-sama. What's happening? Asked the medic nin. Weizu had a grim look on his face. Kirigakure is under attack. Gather your things, we're waiting for you down in the lobby. With that the Tsukikage left the room. The trio quickly rushed around packing their things. Luckily they were already mostly packed. Ninja precaution. They each only had a backpack worth of supplies, so they were set quickly. They grabbed their packs and ran out the door and down the stairs. Lobby. The three boys ran into the hotel's lobby. The second they came in they saw the Tsukikage, Team 17, and 4 Anbu. The Anbu were dressed in a standard uniform. Black pants, black shirt, black boots, and grey armor above the shirt. Lastly they each had a different animal mask, a tiger, an owl, a hawk, and lastly a bear. Lastly they each had a katana, with a black hilt, on their backs. Yami's eyebrow furrowed when he saw Team 17's Junin sensei. Aren't we missing someone? Yami was of course speaking of the Junin sensei of the team that got K in the second exam. Weizu only shook his head. He left last night, he didn't want to stay after what happened, so he left with the wagon carrying RD. Oh, was the only reply Yami could muster. Weizu looked at the 11 people standing in a circle with him. Sound are attacking mist. Right now they are outside the village's gates, but some of them are already on the inside. He paused to let everyone digest this information. Despicable act, muttered one of the ANBU, a hawk-masked one. He's right, this isn't the first time Sound has tried something like this, and I doubt it will be the last, stated the another Anbu, a bear-masked one. They did this before. The question came from Inaki. Weizu only nodded. Yes, according to history Sound invaded Leaf in much the same manner. Archie growled, this is supposed to be a time of temporary peace between out countries. If they truly do this often, then why are they still allowed to take part in the Chunin exams? It's a difficult matter to discuss, something which we don't have the time to do here. Weizu. Tsukikage-sama. I think we should offer our aid to Kirigakure. We should help push sound back, spoke the tiger-masked Anbu, who had spiky red hair. The last Anbu, the one with an owl mask and blue hair, snapped his head towards the tiger-masked one. Are you nuts? You think we should get involved? Weizu silenced them, with a wave of his hand, before they can get into an argument. If we fight, we could probably help Kirigakure fight, at least until they receive aid from their allies. Cloud and Rain, he took a second to glance at the Genins. They'll be in a lot of danger though, the girls won't be able to fight, and I doubt the boys have recovered enough to fight effectively, so it'll just be the 5 of us fighting. He did a double take when he saw Shinji. The sensei for Team 17, 6 if I count Shinji over there, Weizu put a grim expression on his face. The children would be in danger, Yami has just awakened his blood limit, bad things will happen if I let Inokidi, especially for another country that isn't even allied to Moon, and the rest of the children. If possible, Waiju's face became grimmer. What choice do we have? If we try to escape, we'll just run into sound forces alone. Weizu mentally cursed himself for not leaving last night like the Kazekage and the rest of Sans ninja. Weizu sighed at the order he was about to give. We have no choice, we will offer our aid to Mist. The Genins looked grim at this, the Junin kept a straight face, and it was almost impossible to know what the Anbu were thinking, with the masks and all. Thank you for your concerns, but I'll have to decline your offer. The group turned in time to see the Mizukage, and 6 Anbu, walk into the hotel. Weizu turned to look at him. Hello old friend, what do you mean? Why would you decline our help in a time like this? The water shadow just looked grim. I have just discovered that grass is also involved in this attack. Everyone's eyes widened. Weizu looked at him sympathetically. All the more reason to allow us to help, at least until you can get your allies here. The Mizukage shook his head. Unfortunately, it's not the way this is going to work. At first grass pretended to ally with us, but quickly turned coat on us and started attacking us as well. Because of this, the council and I have decided to expel all foreign nin out of our city, or K them. The Moon Nin looked grim. You have 30 minutes to leave our city, before we start attacking you and your shinobi. Weizu looked grim and tried to argue, this isn't wise. The Mizukage just laughed. No, perhaps not. Understand that everything has only started about 20 minutes ago, decisions needed to be made quickly. The Tsukikage only nodded in defeat. How are we supposed to escape the city with all the commotion, and what about sound? They are probably blocking escape paths. The Mizukage shook his head. They are attacked from the north and the east. You can go through our west gate, which suits you. West is the direction of your village. As for escaping, the ninja have been ordered to turn their heads away from anyone who steals a horse. They'll help you escape. How will horses help us escape? Any one of us can outrun a horse. The question, which was more of a statement, was asked by Okami. The Mizukage grinned at him. You never heard of the great horses of water country, I see. This is no time to be acting like this, muttered the Tsukikage. The Mizukage chuckled. Perhaps you're right. Anyway, do be on your way. There's a stable 2 blocks away. With that, the Mizukage and the 6 Anbu disappeared in a swirl of water. So, what now? The question came from Ayami. The Tsukikage sighed. We leave, we have no choice. This caused a sigh to come from some of the Anbu. Let's go. With that last thing said, all the ninja left the room. Outside of Kirigakure, Sound and Grass Shinobi were swarming like insects outside the north gate of Kirigakure. They were trying to climb the 5-story wall that was keeping them out. However, they were being held back by a mist nin that were on the gate, throwing kunai and occasionally hitting the ones that got to close with swords. A whiles away, far enough so that they were away from the battle, but close enough to see everything, laid a giant purple snake. On top of the giant snake stood 2 figures. One was in black cage robes, sans the hat, signifying him as the Otokage of Sound. This figure had black hair and onyx eyes. The second was completely covered in green cage robes, plus green veil, signifying him as the Kasakage of Grass. A black-clad figure jumped onto the head of the giant snake. The Otokage broke the silence. The west gate has been left open, Margulas. The Tsukikage will most likely use this as an escape route. I understand. Like promised, I will personally K the legacy of the Hikari. Margulas turned to leave. Wait, Margulas stopped and turned back. You will also K the Tsukikage. Margulas snapped his head back to the Otokage. Succeed and I'll grant the ability to go to level 3 of the cursed seal. He grinned when he saw the look on Margiela's face. Fail me and, well, I'll show you a whole new side to the cursed seal. Margiela's face paled. Take some ninja if necessary. Margiela's turned and left thinking, against a cage, how about the whole army, though he would never voice that thought out to his lord Orochimaru. The Kasakage turned to Otokage. Do you think he can pull it off? Orochimaru grinned, probably not. If he does it'll just save me the trouble of doing it myself later on. If he doesn't, well, Orochimaru just grinned at the prospect, a grin that made the Kasakage's skin crawl. The Kasakage just turned back towards the battlefield. I haven't you summoned all those snakes yet, you know the ones who used against stone. All he got for an answer was another grin, which made him drop the subject. Inside of Kirigakure, people were rushing all around the place. Ninjas were moving towards the city gates. Civilians were running to one of the many escape paths until the whole ordeal was over with. However, 11 shinobi of Moon could be seen running inside of nearby stables. I still don't see how riding these damn horses will help. And why the hell isn't there anyone here guarding this place? The question came from Okami. These are specially trained horses, they know how to use chakra to increase their speed to a degree that not most ninja can't follow, answered the owl-masked Anbu. Oh, was his only reply, so why aren't people using these to escape? Hell if I know, seems like a complete waste of resources to me, replied the same Anbu, who Okami swore was grinning. They have special underground passageways for people to escape from, that is why, explained the Moon Shadow. Okami and the owl-masked Anbu nodded. When they entered the stable they found several brown horses ready to go. Weizu turned to the group, all right, who knows how to ride? He asked. He got affirmatives from all the ANBU, as expected, from the Junin, also expected, from Sakura, Ayami, and Inaki. Yami, Okami, and Aki had no clue how to ride. We'll keep the children in the middle, so I'll have them partner up. Okami ride with Inaki, he said, ignoring the glare he was receiving from said swordsman. Aki ride with Ayami, ignoring the now perverted look on said swordsman, and Yami ride with Sakura, ignoring the look of pure horror from said Hana sister, and the look of jealousy from said swordsman. Let's go. They each mounted a horse, the children mounting them in the order of the Tsukikage has stated, and the adults each taking a horse. When they mounted they launched themselves out of the stable, each Anbu was holding onto the reins with one hand and their katana with the other. 2 on each side of the group. The Junin was behind the group. The cage was in the front. Inaki and Ayami, with Okami and Aki, were in front, parallel to the front 2 Anbu, and Sakura, with Yami, were in back parallel to the back 2 Anbu. Even though he was trying to keep away from Sakura, he was still close to her, close enough to see that she was shaking too much even though the horse was moving. Are you alright? Asked the psychic. This only made her jump, and possibly shake more. Yami's eyes widened in realization. Idiot. No, she's obviously still afraid of me because of my transformation earlier. He leaned his head closer to Sakura's ear. Sakura, I'm sorry about what happened earlier. I know I can't really make up for it, but I'm still sorry, and I promise that I'm not going to go all demon on you again. Sakura seemed to calm down a little, though she was still clearly worried. Please don't, was her only reply. We're making a tight left up ahead, screamed Weizu. Hang on to me, commanded Sakura. Yami placed his arms around her waist to stay on. Aki did the same with Ayami. Okami, grudgingly, did the same with Inaki. Along the way the Suki Nin saw multiple mist nins all jumping around rooftops. Civilians running all over the place. Even some cases of sound and grass nins, ones that were already inside the wall, fighting mist nins. They were traveling quickly and reached the west gate in about 15 minutes. Wow, these horses really are fast. I agree, was Sakura's only reply. Inaki's eyes widened. The gates are closed. We'll have to abandon the horses at the gate and jump over them, called one of the ANBU. Yami couldn't see which mask he wore. He's right. The shinobi stopped their horses and jumped off following the direction of the gate. They ran up the gate and jumped over the wall and started following the road home. Outside the Kirigakure, North Gate. I'm growing bored, they've been at it for about half an hour now, and still nothing, spat Orochimaru. The Kasakage looked over at his companion. Orochimaru, Mist's defenses are strong, our attack has no strategy, it's just a gambit, you can't expect it to work right away. We're starting to push them back. A glare from Orochimaru quickly shut him up though. Manda, stay here. He jumped off of the snake and quickly made his way towards the battlefield. He was dashing across the field, towards the battlefield, like a speeding bullet. When he was close to the gate he jumped high into the air, his eyes turned red and his pupils changed into a three-pronged shuriken. He started doing hand seals as black flames started to dance around him. Once he was finished he yelled, Amaterasu Kaiten, Koryu Enden no Jutsu, Shining Heaven Fire Release. Fire Dragon Flame Bullet Technique. A dragon, made out of jet black flames, flew out of Orochimaru's mouth and head towards the gate. From his position up top the giant snake's head, the Kasakige's eyes widened, and not just because of the fact that the dragon's maw was about 5 times Orochimaru's height. Sound and Grass Nin that were right in front of the gate turned to the heavy source of heat behind them, only to see a gigantic black dragon coming at them. The shinobi who were right at the gate yelled, and it would be the last time they would ever yell. The flame had incinerated them instantly. The gate, and a huge portion of the wall also disintegrated, as well as the mist nin who were unlucky enough to be on them. The black dragon kept on going for a while, incinerating many buildings that were in its path before out. Orochimaru smirked. The flame spread and started eating away at the wall, and other buildings. The shinobi on the wall started jumping off of it, to avoid getting eaten by the black flames. When Orochimaru landed he smirked again. He was standing in the remainder of his troops. They were all staring at him in shock. Some of them, the ones that escaped the path of the flames, stared at him in horror. Orochimaru glared at him. What the hell do you think you're staring at, you bumbling fools? Attack. The shinobi was startled at his tone of voice and quickly went to attack, avoiding the black flames, that would burn for 7 days and 7 nights. Orochimaru smirked once again, kukukukuku, according to plan. Outside of Kirigakure, West Gate. The moon nins were running fast away from Kirigakure. They were a few miles away from the hidden village when it happened. A giant snake burst out of the ground in front of them, causing everyone, except the Tsukikage, to pause. Weizu jumped high into the air and did a few hand seals in the blink of an eye. He then grabbed a few shuriken and hurled them at the snake, screaming, Kage Shuriken no Jutsu, Shadow Shuriken Technique. The 5 shuriken he threw multiplied by 50 and skewered the giant snake. Weizu landed on the ground. They heard someone clapping behind them. They turned behind them to see a man dressed in black, with black hair, and 5 sound junin. Waiju's eyes narrowed and the Anbu with the tiger mask growled. Yami looked at the man and suddenly his eyes widened. The cursed seal on his neck started to pulsate and his eye color changing into a dull silver. A black-haired man could be seen running through multiple halls. He was clad in a black outfit. He stopped when he laid eyes on a door. He continued going to it at a slow pace, putting the scroll that he was holding inside one of his many pockets. He opened the door and walked in. It led him to a dormitory. Obviously a woman's room, due to the style of decorations and all the other things that were around. It was large, fit for a queen, or the heiress of a prestigious clan. He sat down on the king-sized bed, waiting for the room's tenant, who was obviously in the bathroom, to join him. He didn't wait long. The bathroom door opened to reveal a beautiful woman, who couldn't be older than 20, walked in clad in only a towel. Her beautiful golden hair was damp, and her blue eyes looked at her lover quizzically. She smiled sweetly at him as he came over. Margulis-kun, what are you doing here? She never finished her sentence. He pressed his lips to hers to prevent her from doing so, wrapping his arms around her at the same time. After a few moments he released her lips and allowed her to speak. She was panting due to lack of oxygen. Margulis-kun, the wedding is in 2 weeks, can't you wait till then? She said this with a smirk on her face. His response was to capture her lips once more. She shut her eyes, enjoying the moment she was in. Because of this tough, she didn't see that he was pulling out a needle, a syringe, filled with some type of orange liquid. She didn't have a chance. He pressed the needle to her neck and almost immediately injected her with the liquid. Her body fell limp in his arms. Her eyes wide with confusion. He let out a smirk. It didn't stop there. Yami's vision, he ignored the fact that the same black-haired man was standing before him, and that the Tsukikage and one of the Anbu were in the middle of an argument with him. He ignored everything around him. As the vision didn't stop, he saw the man beat the woman mercilessly, defile her, rape her. his knees buckled and he fell on his knees. He ignored the fact that Sakura and Inaki kneeled on either side of him. Finally the defilement had ended. The tall man had just finished putting his shirt back on. Sweat dripping down his face. A sick satisfied smirk plastered on his face. He looked down at the woman on the floor. Tears welled out of her blue eyes. Margulis-kun. He stared at her in disgust, and then smiled his sick smirk. He preformed a few hand seals. His hand started to glow purple. He then kneeled down next to the woman and placed his glowing hand on top of her navel. This should be a lot more fun. In your weakened state, there's just no way you'll survive this. Goodbye, Karai. Yami's eyes turned blue again. He clenched them shut as tears came to them. He looked at the man once again, but couldn't see much due to all the tears. Then, all Yami could see was red. You animal. Yami launched himself from his position on the floor, ignoring the shocked stares. He flicked open one of his Fuma shuriken. His cursed seal went nuts and the burning pattern started to spread. He launched himself at Margulis, with a Fuma shuriken in hand. He didn't reach him. The owl-masked Anbu stopped him and held onto him, from behind. Whoa there, exclaimed Owl Mask. Let go of me, damn you let me go, screamed the raging psychic trying to fight the hold the Owl Mask Anbu had on him. Yami calm down, yelled the same Anbu. Margulis let out a twisted smirk. Let him go, I was supposed to kill the last of his clan, might as well let me get it over with. Weizu growled and appeared in front of the psychic. Yami, go now, you and the rest of the children must make a run for it, I must keep them a good distance away from the fighting, or else we can lose them. I won't run from this bastard, yelled the enraged psychic. Yami, do you remember what I told you about vengeance? Yami barely had to think about that, it was so engraved into his head that it came almost instantly. Yami, at times. When someone close to you is K, for example, you will feel the need to do horrible things, to destroy the person who hurt your loved ones, if the time for that comes to it then so be it. However, vengeance can easily blind someone. If you let it engulf and control you, then you'll either get yourself K or end up becoming the thing you hate most. Yami lowered his head and stopped struggling, tears coming to his eyes. The cursed seal receded. He could only nod in response. The Anbu let go of the psychic. Weizu replied, good, now go. Yami turned on his heel and ran back to his comrades who were running as well. Once they were out of earshot, Margulis spoke. He turned out soft. What a disappointment. No, Margulis, the only disappointment is you, exclaimed the tiger-masked Anbu, who took off his mask and pocketed it. Margulis grinned. How have you been doing, Kazu? Kazu sneered at the man. After that they faced off, Tsukikage, Kazu, 3 Anbu, and 1 Junin versus Margulis and 5 Junin. Margulis grinned, no point in holding back, after he said that, his cursed seal activated. Unlike Yami's, Margulis' cursed seal was composed of 3 curved lines. The curse mark spread through his body in a ripping pattern. When it was finished, it looked like Margulis' skin was about to just fall off his body. Black energy surged around Margulis. Chi no Juan, cursed seal of earth, as opposed to the brat's Ten no Juan, cursed seal of heaven. Weizu repressed the urge to gag at the sight before him. Yami and friends, I couldn't think of a better name. The genin were running away from the battlefield, towards Twilight Country, as quickly as their legs would carry them. Yami was still trying to fight back tears. We can't do a thing to help, the girls aren't in any condition to fight, and the rest of us are still too weak from our battle to do any good. The best we can do is run. Or so he thought. A few yards ahead of him 3 explosions, of dirt, halted their sprint. 3 brown snakes appeared before them. The snakes were about 4 times the height of the children, in length. They were about half as wide though. The youngsters jumped back just as one of the snakes lunged to bite them. Damn it all. The yell came from Okami. What now? Asked Aki as she avoided getting bitten again. The moment he saw the snakes clumped together like they were, he knew the answer. He let the cursed seal claim his body once again, as fire-like marks burned across his body, then cool into a black pattern. Black chakras swirled around him as the others were completely taken off guard. He started doing hand seals. Kuchio's no jutsu. In a puff of smoke a frog appeared under Yami, said frog being about twice Yami's height. Punk, what the hell do you want? He didn't finish. The moment he saw the snakes he knew the answer. Snakes? Why is it that whenever I see snakes, it turns into a bad thing? Boss, last time we trained together you told me you learned to use oil. It was phrased like a statement, but it was actually a question. Gamakichi only nodded. Let's do it. Yami started doing the hand seals for Kaiten, Ruka no Jutsu, fire release, dragon fire technique. The move itself was probably a C rank move, unless used in combination with wires or in Gamakichi's case, oil. It then turned into an 8S rank move. When Yami finished his seals they both yelled. Kaiten, Gamayu Embuden, fire release, Toad, oil flame bullet. Gamakichi spit out a stream of oil, which covered the snakes. Yami breathed a torrent of fire out. The end result was that the two techniques combined to unleash a torrent of hellfire at the snakes. The snakes easily burned. Later punk, said the frog after the technique had ended. Said frog puffed away. Yami landed on the ground. The other genins let out a smirk and together they all started to run once again. Weizu versus Margulas. Weizu and Margulas stared each other down. The ninja they brought were facing off against each other, much to Kazu's displeasure, who wanted to fight Margulas. Margulas grinned once again. I won't take it easy on you, old man. With that said, his cursed seal started to pulse once again. Black energy surrounded him as the cursed seal. His nails grew into claws. Horns grew from his head. Spikes grew from his spinal cord, ruining the shirt that he was wearing. Lastly, his tailbone extended into a long tail, which also had spikes along the middle of it. Now I have more than enough strength to destroy you, sneered Margulas. Weizu didn't even bat an eye, which only enraged the demon. Ahhh, roared Margulas, who launched himself at the Tsukikage. Once again Weizu didn't even move from his position. A second afterwards the Tsukikage exploded in a flash of light, effectively blinding Margulas. Ahhh, he screamed. Hirameki Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Flash Shadow Doppelganger Technique, a modification of the normal Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, quite effective for temporarily blinding arrogant fools who jump in far too much. The voice came from Weizu. Even though the old man was speaking, Margulas could hear him doing something else. He's sealing. Tsukikage Shiki Jijin Jutsu, Kakuin Nitten Sushu, Tsukikage style 60-year-old technique, enclosed hermitage return to society. Margulas screamed once again as he felt the Tsukikage's fist against his back. This is a variant on a technique which was used again Naruto. Usually it only possesses the power to stop those possessed by Biju, but with Naruto's ingenuity, we now have a technique that can disable those who use the power of the cursed seal. Margulas blinked as he was slowly regained his vision. He could see the Tsukikage looking at him with nothing but anger in his eyes. Goodbye, he started sealing once again. He did a back flip and threw a few shuriken. Kage Shuriken no Jutsu. 50 shuriken went flying at Margulas, who only whistled. A second before the shuriken hit a giant snake exploded from the ground. The snake was quickly skewered by the shuriken. Weizu growled and tried to look for Margulas, but found that he was gone. He sighed and looked to see the condition of his own men. 2 Soundnin on the ground, the rest were gone. His own ninja were fine though 2 of his Anbu were severely hurt, though they would live. Let's go. With that the ninjas took off, hoping to catch up to the fleeing youngsters. Kirigakure. The Mizukage was on the ground, panting hard. A few yards away from him was Orochimaru, Mangekyo Sharingan eyes blazing. You should have accepted my alliance, goodbye you old fool. Orochimaru started sealing, Reikiri, lightning blade. A large surge of electricity formed in Orochimaru's right hand. The last thing that the Mizukage saw was Orochimaru's twisted grin. Glad that fool of a teacher taught my new body how to perform Chidori, 1000 birds, else I might never have gotten my hands on this much stronger jutsu. A sound nin appeared behind Orochimaru. Lord Orochimaru, Margulas has returned. By the tone of his voice, Orochimaru knew the answer to his question, but decided to amuse himself nonetheless, and, did he succeed? The sound nin shook his head. He failed, sir. Orochimaru's face remained neutral. You may go then. Yes, sir. Orochimaru thought about it for a bit and grinned. Let's see if I can't make you more useful with my experiments, my dear Margulas. It's been 2 weeks since the group returned to Tsukigakure. And about 2.5 weeks since the destruction of Kirigakure. Most of the civilians got away, using underground tunnels to escape, as did the feudal lords who came to observe the Chunin exams. The ninjas from the villages, the ones who survived, also managed to escape the chaos. The mist nins weren't as lucky. Very few of them escaped with their lives, the ones who either joined Cloud or Rain, or went into hiding. Since there was no Kirigakure anymore, they weren't considered missing nin. Everyone knew of Yami, Okami, and Inaki's promotion to Chunin. To say the council, not the clan heads, was furious would be an understatement. They accused the Tsukikage of playing favorites with Team 7, and didn't help the teams enough. A few words from the Junin, the leaders of Team 17 and Team 26, the team that D in the Chunin exam, quickly shut the council up. They explained that the Tsukikage did not play favorites. The fact that the leader of Team 26 lost his whole team in the Chunin exam, gave him a huge amount of credibility. Yami's friends congratulated him every chance they got. Bankatsu's parents invited him, Okami and Inaki, to celebrate his promotion with dinner. He got his same invitation with Okami's grandparents, Inaki's parents, and Kisai's parents. He met up with Kitsune, who also congratulated him multiple times. Team 7 was now inside of the Tsukikage's office. Inside the office were Weizu, a few Anbu, and Megumi. First off, I would like to congratulate all of you again on a job well done. You exceeded my expectations, congratulated the Tsukikage. Now I would like to present you all with your Chunin vests. Said vests were being handed to the boys by Megumi. I would also like to state that I'm temporarily disbanding Team 7. Weizu halted to wait for the reaction he knew would come. He wasn't disappointed. What? Yami, what the hell do you mean you're disbanding US? Okami. Inaki's eyes widened. Weizu lifted his hand to shush the boys. Calm down, now listen. As you saw, Yami activated his blood limit during the Chunin exams. I want him to start training with Megumi on how to better use his bloodline ability, as well as teach him his clan's taijutsu. I want him to solely be working on his training, not going on missions. Inaki, I would like you to leave missions for a while and take up a job at the hospital. If you're going to become a medic nin, you should study there for a little while to increase your skills. As for you Okami, you need to construct your own Hakume Shikens. Afterwards, since I have no special training for you, you will be free to either take missions or train. It'll be your choice. Now are there any questions? Asked the cage. I have one, spoke the psychic. Why Megumi? What does she know of my clan? Hey, don't disrespect your sensei, she faked a pout. Yami, I never told you this, but I was the one who helped your mother learn all her techniques. Yami's eyes widened at this. That is why I was chosen to help you learn your techniques. Yami nodded in understanding. Megumi was my mother's sensei. Weizu merely nodded, as if knowing what Yami was thinking. I'll be taking both of you off of missions, for about a year or so, depending on how quickly you learn the abilities that will be presented to you. The boys nodded, and left his office, preparing themselves for what was to come. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.